I've just finished spinning this yarn, and if you'd like to see the process behind it, stick around. In this video, I'll take you through exactly how I made it, how I chose the colors, blended in scraps, prepared the batt, and finally spun it into this finished skein. I start by pulling out a large plastic box where I keep my pre-carded wool. I take a moment to look through what I have so I can get an overview before I decide on the colors I want to use. This part is usually quite intuitive for me, especially with a project like this where I don't have a specific end goal in mind yet, but just spin for the sake of the process. I feel like those kind of yarn tend to be the best, but sometimes they fail miserably as well. For this yarn, I begin with some greens and blues at the base. Then I add light pink and hot pink for contrast. To make the transition between those colors smoother, I include a bit of purple. That way, the shifts won't feel too harsh. Finally, I grab a bit more of each color so I have enough fiber for a larger batch of yarn. One important tip: don't add too many colors at once. It's tempting, but that can quickly turn into a muddy gray mix. Fewer, well-chosen colors usually give the cleanest results. With my fibers picked out, I clamp my Ashford drum carder to the table and make sure it's stable. I have attached the extra packer brush, which helps press the fibers onto the drum so I can make larger batts. And it also keeps finer fibers under control. Before I begin carding, I want to include some yarn scraps in the mix. I pull out my box of leftovers and select the ones that complement the colors I've already chosen. To prepare them, I cut the scraps into shorter pieces with scissors. Keeping them short helps them blend better with the wool and prevent long, strong fibers from bending the metal pins on the drum. To incorporate the tiny scraps I just cut, I make what I call a fiber sandwich. This method prevents the scraps from falling out during carding. I start with a thin layer of pre-carded wool laid flat on the table. In this case, it's the blue one. That's the bottom of the sandwich. On top of that, I sprinkle the yarn scraps evenly. Then I finish by placing another thin layer of wool, this time the purple one, on top. I feed the sandwich into the bottom of the drum carder, gently holding back with one hand while I turn the crank with the other. This allows the entire sandwich to transfer smoothly to the large drum without getting caught on the small drum. If I'm adding only wool instead of scraps, I feed the fibers directly onto the large drum. This method gives me more control over exactly where I want the colors to land in the batt, which shows up clearly later in the spinning. For this project, I mix colors fairly randomly. I'm slightly concerned that they might blend too much, but at this stage it looks good and I like the effect. I continue by making a few more sandwiches and also applying fibers directly to the drum, switching between the two methods as needed. When the batt is fully carded, I remove it from the carder. At this point, I'm happy with how it looks. The colors are working well together, and now I can start preparing for the actual spinning process. Now it's time to prepare the batt for spinning. Spending a little extra time here makes the spinning process much easier and smoother, so I always consider this step a good investment. I lay the batt out flat on the floor so I can see the whole piece clearly. Then I carefully split it lengthwise into thin strips. It's important not to force the wool apart. The fibers usually separate most easily where they want to split, so letting the wool guide you makes the process smoother. Once I have my strips, I pre-draft each one by gently pulling along the fiber. I don't pull so hard that the strips falls apart, just enough to loosen the fibers and make them airier. This step is called pre-drafting. You're essentially doing a bit of the drafting motion in advance, which makes the fibers flow much more easily when spinning. I repeat this with all the strips until everything is prepared and ready at my spinning station. Before I start spinning, I make a few design decisions. I look through my shelf of yarn drawers and select a metallic silver thread to use as an auto wrap. This will add sparkle and give the yarn a magical fantasy-like look. Combined with the blue, green and pink tones I've chosen, I feel like it gives me a mermaid-inspired vibe, like shimmering water. I also decided to add a thick blue wool yarn as core yarn. This allows me to spin a bulkier yarn where the spirals sit more vertically, which is the effect I want here. Since I'll be spinning with both a core yarn and an auto wrap in addition to the wool, I take a few minutes to set everything around my wheel so it's well organized. A good setup makes managing multiple elements much easier during spinning. Now I sit down at the spinning wheel. I start by attaching everything to the leader. If you'd like more details on leaders, I have a separate video dedicated to that, which I'll link. Into the leader's loop, I place the wool fiber, the silver auto wrap and the blue core yarn. The auto wrap thread goes between my index and middle finger on my left hand. I don't actively manage it, I just hold it in place lightly, and it wraps itself automatically as I spin. That's where the name auto wrap comes from. The core yarn, the thick blue wool, I hold with the other 3 fingers on my left hand. Those fingers also maintain tension on the fiber as it's spun. With my right hand, I draft the wool. Once all the fiber is spun, I wind the yarn onto a swift and leave it stretched there for about 2 days. The longer the yarn rests in a fixed position, the more it settles into that shape. This yarn is a single ply, which means it's made from only one strand, not plied together with others. I spun it with a fairly high twist, so if you take it straight off the bobbin, it will feel overspun and unbalanced. But letting it rest, stretch out helps relax it and makes it easier to work with. After resting, I rust the yarn and let it dry while still on the swift. Once it's completely dry, I wind it into a neat ball using a ball winder. And here's the finished result, a hand-spun single-ply yarn with a silver auto wrap sparkle and a blue core for strength and structure. I'm really pleased with how it turned out.